to Telly Talk, where we talk about what's on the telly. Unfortunately, our television is broken this week, so we're just chit-chatting. We're just doing a little chit-chat. I got some soup with me. I'm Soul, the soup person. I think I
Television
said
is
that.
broken is so funny.
I think I said that in a previous episode that I'm Soul, the soup person. Who are you?
I am just Tyler.
I'm just tired. So we originally planned to talk about books we've read this recently. I guess just books in general. How have you read any books this year?
Oh my god, my friend uses this like app to track books that are read and you can do like buddy reads on there, but
Oh, me
I
too.
forget that I have it on my phone and I never use it. And my friend is always like, you need to put your books in the app, and I don't. But I have a thing in my notes app, and it's a list of books that I want to read, and then I check them off for the 2024 year. So it's where is it? 2024 reading list. And then I just finished an audiobook. Do audiobooks count? I just listened to my first ever audiobook this month.
Yeah, they count.
What was it called? Talking to Strangers.
I
Let me check
have
that off.
I have Storygraph, the app.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I forget, I never, ever, ever open it.
It's kind of complicated. To like the layout's just shit.
It's
Like
like
you have
not
like a
intuitive.
yeah, you have like a to read pile currently reading, and then you get like reading stats, and you can set a goal for yourself. Like I
Yeah.
have a goal for one book a month, so 12 books this year, and I have read 9 books this year, which is more than I've read in the past
S-
10 years.
That's
Um,
so exciting. Okay, we should give some like background, right? So, growing up, I read all the time. Like I was always reading everywhere I went. I took a book with me when I was in like elementary and middle school. Like once my little sister told my mom that she was worried about me. I was like 9 and my sister was like 7. She told my mom she was worried about me because she thought that I read too much. My little sister never reads. We're like complete opposites. It's so funny. Like I read The Tale of Despero on my own in 2nd grade. Um and then I just took off from there, right? And I was the Battle of the Books champion of the entire district in 8th grade. That's my lifetime accomplishment. And then high school hit, and I got busy, and I had so much to read for school that I stopped having the energy to read for pleasure. And then COVID happened, and I started reading for pleasure again, and it was beautiful. And then I school happened again, and now it's like during the summer my level of books upticks, and the rest of the year it's like very very few because I'm busy with school.
nice, nice.
What about you?
I was kind of the same as a kid. I would go to the library all the time, and I would check out the max amount of books you could possibly check out, which I think was 20. And I would go home and read them all in like a weekend, and then I would go back and do it again. And some of them would be like chapter books, and some of them would be picture books. But I would read all of the time. And then I discovered video games, and then I forgot about reading because I loved video games. And then elementary school, all I would do was read. And I remember my friend and I, we would buy the same book, or like just get the same book, and we would read it together. And it was like hard because she was a really slow reader, and I read really fast. And so I would be done with like this section we said we would read in like an hour, that she would take like 3 days, and it would kill me at how slow I wasn't able to read this book. But
That's kind of funny. This year, aren't you reading a lot of books that we liked when we were like younger?
yeah, um,
Like, which is totally valid because my favorite book age to read is books that are targeted for 10 to 12 year olds, like Percy Jackson, like that age level of book. Because I always say this, it's my favorite book to read because the kids who are they're targeted for are old enough that the books have to be interesting, but they're young enough that the reading level is something that someone our age could read very quickly. So it's like it's a really good story, and also it's relaxing to read. Like it doesn't put like a mental load on you to like actually like comprehend the book because it's a low enough reading level. You feel me?
Yeah.
I love reading books for like 9 to 12-year-olds. Oh my god.
When I got to like late middle school, high school, I stopped finding reading like pleasurable because it was always for reading assignments, and I am not a very smart person, and so
You are very smart. Don't do yourself
not
like
in
that.
the way, not in like an intellectual way. I'm smart in different ways, but not in the way that is good for school and good for
Yeah.
literature analysis. And so
Yeah.
in English class, we would have to analyze these books, and I just would have. I mean, I still don't have any idea how to like analyze a book, which is sad for me. And so I just like hated reading,
Yeah.
and so I just like stopped entirely. And then I think in like late high school, I tried reading again, and I tried reading books I liked when I was a kid, which was nice. And then my life got busy for like 5 years. And then I think last year was the first time I picked up a book again since like sophomore year of high school.
Oh yeah. Since like I said, when COVID happened, I started reading again, even though I didn't read like freshman or sophomore year of high school. But then when I started college, I stopped having time to read again. I would read like one book a semester, and like that's all I had the time and energy for, because I was spending so much time reading very cognitively taxing books and text for classes. But I'm getting better at reading for pleasure.
Yeah, and I started buying books recently, like a lot of books, and I'm like, okay, I now have to read all these books. And so I made a goal this year to read at least one book a month. And I tried reading like this thick book, and I just like could not get through it. And it was taking me so long. I did choose a really hard book too. It was The House of Leaves, and I tried reading it for like a good solid 3 months, and I couldn't get past like chapter 4 because it was just
We're gonna
it
do
was so
another book
intense.
talk series on that book in like 3 years.
In three
Just you need to
years.
subscribe right now. You need to subscribe right now.
Yeah.
It's 2024. Just know that in 2027 we will be doing a book talk series on House of Leaves.
I think we can move it up to 2026. I think we have time.
Potentially. Whenever we get tired of movies.
Yeah. It'll be soon. Um,
So just know that you should subscribe for that reason.
yeah, and it's just like a really hard book to read. It takes like forever just to read a page because you have to like
It's like
read
so much is
like
happening on the page.
what is the footnotes? There's like the footnotes in like chapter 2
Right.
are like 3 or 4 pages long because there's a story that
And
you have
it's
to
really
read in the
weird
footnote.
because it's like the bit in the book is that the author is like a real person, but he's not. It's like a fake
Yeah, it's like
autobiography.
the author was blind.
There's like so many layers
It's
to the book.
so
I remember we talked about it
confusing.
when we were like 15.
It's so confusing. But I started reading that and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And
I'm
then
gonna buy it soon.
I tried reading just like Little Women, which is like 800 fucking pages. Maybe 900.
Mm.
And that's like really long. And then I realized that my reading endurance, I think it's endurance. Reading endurance was just like nothing. And so I was like, okay, I gotta start small. And so for Christmas, I got the Narnia Chronicles, which is 7 books. And I started, and each book is like max like 280 pages. And so I could like easily read that in like a day or two. And so I started reading those. And I read like 4 of them in 1 month. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And so every time I finish a book, I choose one that gets like slightly thicker. And so I've read all 7 of the Narnia Chronicles. I've read Gregor the Overlander, the first book, which is also a childhood book that we read together.
That was okay. I just want to say that the books that Gregor the Overlander was one of the books that okay, in elementary school, teachers do this thing where they do read aloud, and for like 20 minutes a day, they just read books to you. And as a kid, I was like, I don't know why we're doing this, but it's fun and relaxing. Some kids listen, some kids zone out, whatever. Now that I'm studying to be a teacher, I know that it's really important because it models like fluency. Like I was really good at reading, so I didn't understand why this could be beneficial for other kids, but it is really important for the teacher to model what a fluent reader sounds like for students. So now I understand the pedagogical theory behind it, right? Anyway, in 4th grade, our teacher read so many fucking good read aloud books. Like I remember all of them and I loved all of them. In the very was it the first one? It was Gregor the Overlander, and it was so funny. Like our class was invested in it. So many people checked out the rest of the series to read, and like we would
I
like
did.
crack up at parts of it. Yeah. Continue.
Um, about that reading literacy thing, when I was in like first grade, we'd have like guest reader come in. Like it would just be like the parents of my other classmates. And if I liked the way the person like read the book and like how they were enunciating the words and everything, I would go home and I would copy their voice and read books just like them. And I'm pretty sure that's just an autism thing. But
Probably.
I feel like I don't know. I related to what you said. But
I
I
would
think
love to explain to you like so many like behind the scenes of things we did in elementary school now that I'm like I know.
you know the secrets.
I know the secrets now. It's like it's really funny actually that like I know how schools work and like why we do certain things. Speaking of that, this year, even though I'm reading for pleasure, some of the books I'm reading for pleasure, I'm like kind of I'm doing some fiction, some nonfiction, and the nonfiction books I'm reading for pleasure are like teacher books. And like I'm just
Teacher
like they're
books.
not for my classes. I just like am so passionate and interested that I'm reading them on my own and enjoying them. Um,
Nice.
all right. So
Oh
recently, you go.
no. I found my read book list. Okay, so I read the Narnia Chronicles. I read Gregor the Overlander. I read or I listened to the 1984 audiobook, but the one that Audible did with like the voice actors and Andrew Garfield
Mm.
and like all
Oh,
of
was that
them.
fun?
It was so good. It was like watching a movie with my eyes closed. It was so
That's
fucking good.
awesome. That's
And
really great, man.
I saw people on like TikTok thirsting over like Andrew Garfield's torturing
Oh,
whines. Like when he's being
that's
tortured at the end, he's like
that's kind of funny.
whining and like groaning in pain. But I'm
That's
like,
kind of
why
funny.
are they thirsting over that when there's literal sex scenes in the book? Like they have like 3 different points in the book where you're literally listening to porn. Like you're listening to porn. And I'm like, you're not sharing that part, but
Can
the
you believe that we
torturing
read that in
scene.
high school? Like we
Oh my
read that when we were
god.
15.
I remember I one of our Jungian friends, uh she was reading 1984 and her teacher told her to skip the chapters where they had sex.
That's stupid. That's very 1984 to
Yeah. I was like,
censor the
what?
book. What?
And then
That's
we read
that's
it
doing the book. You're
anyways.
doing the book.
We read it anyways and then we like acted out the scenario. But it was like not the sex part, just like the funny bits.
And that's what's happening right now with like book bans, right? Like parents are being like you should ban 1984 in schools because they have sex in it and that's not appropriate for high schoolers, which is silly and it's fine. And it's so 1984 to want to ban 1984.
Literally. And then I
So,
read
oh, what else did you read?
And then I read this book called Potiki. When I went to New
Oh,
Zealand earlier this year, I wanted to buy a book from New Zealand about New Zealand. and it was like this nonfiction. It was like one of those like Penguin classic books.
Yeah.
And it was like very short. It was like 200 pages, and about this like disabled boy who was like born, I think, out of like rape, I think, and he was like unwanted, and his mom tried to drown him in the ocean.
It's so
And it's like a
interesting.
very sad story, and it's about like colonizing and shit, and it was really, really good, and I really loved it. And then now I'm currently reading. Currently, I'm reading. Um. Oh, I'm reading the what's it called? The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is like the gayest book I've ever
Oh,
read,
is it
and
really?
and uh I found out they were making a movie of it, but they're making the two like main love interests brothers. So I don't know what they're doing with the story because the entire book is literally so gay. I've started marking every point where they're like being gay for each other, and it's every single page. Every single page,
That's
there's something gay being
bro.
said about the other
I
person.
need to read it now. You're convincing me.
And I'm also reading this book for my class, but it's a graphic novel. It's called The 47 Ronin, and it's the first historically accurate graphic novel of a Japanese history event. I feel like it's just the first historically accurate graphic novel in general. But this historical, like history books, should be graphic novels because I'm like really loving this. And the pictures are amazing because I can actually like see what the people look like and I can understand like the exact things that they were doing to get to the leading up to the main event and then like what happens during that and then the conclude. It's just like so helpful for people who like visual learning rather than just staring at a bunch of words. They really need to make like graphic novel versions of historical events. It's really helpful. What do you think about that?
That that was so that's how I understand how you feel when I talk for a long time now. I've never heard you talk so much at once. Like that wow. Um I have a graph this is not totally on like I have a graphic novel version of The Great Gatsby and it's so pretty. And I think it's cool because The Great Gatsby is a really great book, but it's like boring to read at times. So
Yeah.
I agree that it's like visual medium. I think like you know how I always say that A Tale of Two Cities is such a great story and it's so well written, but it's
Yeah.
also the most
If
boring
that
fucking thing to actually read.
yeah,
If
if
that
that
was a
was a
graphic
graphic
novel,
novel, I would fucking read that shit. I think I
like
would like
it being
it.
a graphic novel would be more entertaining than it being a movie. I swear to God. Like it is such a good story, but holy shit, it is written in the most long-winded way possible, which is so valid and it has points and like it's there's reasons it's written that way, and I understand, but like no one ever in our modern day wants that.
Yeah.
Like I remember like one of the first chapters spends 3 full pages saying we were walking up the hill and it was muddy.
It was
And
the best
like
of times. It was the worst.
if the Tale of Two Cities was a graphic novel, that would be a game changer. They should do that with more classics.
Yeah, don't make it into a movie because all the kids just watch the movie and then the movie isn't a good adaptation of it. Just make it into a graphic novel and people will just like rip through that shit and understand it.
And like the graphic novel of The Great Gatsby I have is like watercolor. It's gorgeous. You would like it. Um, is that all you read this year?
So far, yeah. I started like three other books, but I'm like, I
Yeah.
shouldn't do that. So far,
Do you have
yeah.
anything else you plan to read before New Year's?
Um,
You got two
yeah.
months.
Don't say that. um, I'm okay. My major goal. So I have like a shelf of books in my room. And it
You
has
have like a normal bookshelf, and then you have like a special shelf that's like the books you're reading this year.
yeah. And so my goal, essentially for this year, was to just build up my reading endurance again. Just like start reading longer and longer and longer books because I'm trying to get all the way up to Don Quixote level. And Don
Mm.
Quixote is like literally 1,000 pages and probably really dense. And so I'm trying to work my way there by starting with children's books and then like working my way up with more dense, maybe even throwing a nonfiction in there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll probably read Little Women, and then the final Don
I would like to read
Quixote.
Little Women. Let me know how it is.
Oh, I love the movie so much. And you
I
can.
always thought Little Women was a more difficult book, and then something
It's
happened
really
recently where I
not.
realized that it's more of a kid's book, and
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit.
Like
I
when
don't
I
know why I
started.
thought it was like a bigger classic, but it
Yeah.
really is targeted towards little girls.
Like when I started reading it, like the copy I have, the text is like big, like for a kid. And I started reading it, and I was like, oh, this is like for like a 12-year-old. Like I could.
It's kind of like Little House on the Prairie, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh my god, I fucking love that series. I used to
Yeah,
read that
I
all
read
the
it when I was younger.
time.
My grandma got me the whole set.
I used to read the first book, like the first two books. They were my favorite. I used
Yeah,
to read them over and
me
over and over
too.
again.
I really like that series.
Then I found out she was a real person, and I was like, "Oh my
Isn't that
god, this is
crazy?
like what she lived."
And
That's
they had
crazy.
a Who Was, like, you know that like series and all that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
book fair
yeah,
that yeah.
yeah. Good times.
Um okay, this year in January I read this book called The Boy Who Would Be a Helicopter. That's a teacher book that a professor that I had fall semester of my fall semester of my sophomore year of college. She let me this book of hers because we read a book by the author in class and I loved it. Like I read the whole thing. I was obsessed with the author and like what she did. She teaches like kindergarten and does the stuff where she like puts on kind of like plays with her students where they can't write stories yet, but she wants to get them thinking about writing, so she has them dictate stories to her, and then she like reads them out loud, and the students like perform them to each other, and it really gets students thinking, like processing their own emotions through the stories and like understanding how components of a story work. It's really really cool. So I asked my professor, like, do you have any other books by this author that like you would recommend? And she gave me this book, The Boy Who Would Be a Helicopter, which is along the same lines with the putting on the plays thing, and it follows this one boy who has like behavioral challenges. He pretends to be a helicopter all the time, and it's like how he kind of came out of his shell over the course of the kindergarten year. And my professor let me keep the book, and that was really really great. Then that I read that in like January, and then college kicked my ass and I didn't read anything else until the summer, but then it was May and I could read again, and a new Percy Jackson book came out, and man do I love Percy Jackson and books that I could fly through because they're written for 12-year-olds. I read the new Percy Jackson book in like 3 days. It was so fun. Percy Jackson is such a funny book. Like it's written so humorously, and I had such a great time reading it. Listen, this summer, my inner 12-year-old was having such a good time because there was a new Percy Jackson book, and then my favorite book series of all time, Michael Vey. I started reading that when I was 11 in 6th grade. That's the book how I figured out I had Tourette syndrome, because the main character had it. It was a Battle of the Books book. I read the first book when I was 11 in 2 days. I flew through it. I loved it so much. And then it's a 7-book series. It was a 7-book series. The first 6 books, fantastic, loved them. The 7th book was so disappointing. It was dog shit. I was so pissed that the series ended so badly. Like like the 7th book came out when I was like 15. Like these books were coming out from like when I was 11 to 15, and the first 6 were so good, and then the 7th one was so bad, and then it was over. And then just like with the new Percy Jackson book, it basically takes place like a couple years later, and like just like starts a new story. Basically, is what happened with the new Percy Jackson book and this new Michael Vey's book. So my inner 6th grader had a great summer. I read the new Percy Jackson book, and I read Michael Vey 8, and then Michael Vey 9 released, and I read Michael Vey 9, and I had the time of my life reading these little fiction books, and it was so good. I was so happy about it. As I'm older, I'm realizing that Michael Vey has some questionable politics inserted in the books. Like it's very personal to me, and this is obviously not something I was thinking about when I loved the book when I was 11, but there are like 12 main characters in like all of them are white except one who is Asian, and that's like weird, I
Damn.
think. And like all of them are just like straight and like they start off kind of poor, but over the course of the book they become rich, and it's like not just rich, it's like absolutely obnoxious. Like they, by the point this new book is out, it's like they are extremely extremely wealthy, like own the most expensive car in the entire world, and it's like they're happy about it because they saved the world, so it's like, yeah, I deserve to be this rich, and that's kind of weird. And like the love interest girl, her dad's a cop, and and like I this it's still my favorite book series, but now that I'm older, it's like the politics inside the book, like under like subtext messaging, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's nothing like outwardly bigoted, but it's like the vibes are, I don't get I don't get great vibes from like the author's intention writing a children's book with characters in this way.
Damn.
But I still had a great time reading Michael Vey 8 and 9. Basically, Michael Vey is about these children who were all born on the same day with this like baby machine that was made, and it fucked up and it killed most of the babies, but the babies that did survive all have like different powers based around electricity. Like they can all do different things with the idea that electricity works in so many different ways. Like there's electricity in the body, there's electricity like in the atmosphere and like in technology. So it's like there's a lot of different powers that they have. And there's like this really really bad guy, and he's kind of like a Hitler vibes.
Ew.
And yeah, no, he's the bad guy though, and like they beat him. And then the seventh book is kind of stupid because it's like they beat him so quickly when the first six books were like building up to like this big thing. And it's really great. And then this new series is like it's like 4 years later, and they're in college now. But then it's like when they killed the Hitler guy, that he still had these like branches of like the bad groups working under him, and now that the leader's dead, those branches have like split off and like are trying to do their own evil things, and now they're like taking down those groups because they kidnapped one of them. It's fun. You learn a lot from the series because they travel to a lot of different like parts of the world, and it's like there's this one character who's like so autistic. He's not canonically autistic, but he's like your staple like white boy with autism, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
like just
yeah.
like really
Yeah.
like blunt and doesn't get jokes and like knows all these random facts. He's like has like insane IQ type of thing, and so it's and like now that I'm older, it's a little bit lazy writing because basically instead of having the author tell you about like the facts about this place that he wants the reader to know, he just has this character whose role is basically sharing facts, and that character tells you everything you need to know about the place. But it's fun, and I learn things when I read it. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's like I have a bit of nostalgia with the series, and now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, there are flaws, but it's good. I like it. Then this fall semester of college started, and I read this book called The Circuit, and that book is a autobiography of this guy. He's like he's a grown man now, and like is like a professor or something. But when he was like 4 years old, him and his older brother and his parents illegally crossed the border from Mexico to America, and like and then his parent over the course of the autobiography, his parents had a lot more children. And it's like just him growing up in America as his parents are migrant workers, like moving from place to place, picking crops, and like him going to school but not knowing English. And basically, I was recommended to read this for my teaching English language learners class to kind of get, because we are native English speakers who grew up in America, and like we don't understand the perspective of like what a kid who's coming to our classroom who doesn't speak English like has gone through. So it was like trying to like give you that like understanding of their experiences, and it was a really good book. It's really sad. The first half of the book is like it's not too sad, but the second half of the book, basically every chapter something sad happens, and the book jumps around a lot. It's like he's 4, and then the next chapter he's 6, and then the next chapter he's 8, and like each chapter is just like a little slice, like a moment of his life in that year. And it's like, wow, this is really really sad. And then the chapter ends, and then it's 2 years later, and I'm like, damn, we don't even get
Damn.
Closure. And then the book ends with him and his family being deported when he's like 12.
What?
And then it just ends. It just ends. Him and his family are deported, and the book's over. And it's so sad. It just ends. And it's an autobiography. Like, this happened to the guy. It's, oh my god, it was such a sad book. That was called The Circuit. I heard that there's a sequel that carries on with like the rest of his like teenage years. I don't know what it's called. I want to look for it. Then, like I said, I've been reading teacher books for fun. I got this book called Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire. It's by Rafe Esquith. He's my, like, this book is my Bible. I, like, annotated the fuck out of it, and this man is my hero. Let me just read you the back of the book. Are you ready?
Yeah.
In a rough Los Angeles neighborhood plagued by... This book was written in like 2005. It's a little outdated. But in a rough Los Angeles neighborhood plagued by violence, there is an exceptional public school classroom called Room 56. The fifth graders inside are either immigrants or children of immigrants. Most live in poverty, and few speak English as their first language. They also play Vivaldi, perform unabridged plays by Shakespeare, and go on to attend the finest universities in the country. Rafe Esquith is the teacher who helps them achieve these accomplishments, and this extraordinary best-selling book is his gift to all those who care about our children's future. A detailed, unforgettable guide to turning kids on to the wonder of learning, the power of imagination, and the wealth of finding oneself. And then, like, the very intro of the book, it says... Rafe Esquith has taught at Hobart Elementary School for 24 years. He's the only teacher in history to receive the National Medal of Arts. He's also been made a member of the British Empire by Queen Elizabeth.
What?
His many other honors include the American Teacher Award, Parents Magazine's As You Grow Award, Oprah Winfrey's Use Your Life Award, and Compassion and Action Award from Dalai Lama. He is the author of 3 books, including Lighting Their Fires, and lives in Los Angeles with his wife. And the entire book is just like what he does in his classroom. Like he takes you through what he does in every subject, and like how he like does like different systems in his classroom. And this is what I was sending you pictures of, the movies he shows his 5th graders. He shows his 5th graders like all these like classic films, and I sent you like the pictures of it. Like he just...
Oh yeah.
He does a film club like once a week after school, and then also like rents out, like lets students like take DVDs home for the weekend from his library. And he does this thing where he like spends like 4 days a week working after school with kids to put on a complete Shakespeare play with like a rock band soundtrack. And he like teaches the kids to play the instruments and also like how to perform the play. They perform it like professionally. Like they go to professional... There's like 11-year-olds. They go to professional events and perform these Shakespeare plays. He's friends with Sir Ian McKellen, and like,
What?
I know he performed plays with for Queen Elizabeth with his 5th graders, and like, these are kids from really shitty situations, and they do great things in his classroom, and then go on to have like very successful lives. And the book just like takes you through his mind, and it's like my Bible. It's so inspiring. I don't agree with like every single thing, but like for the most part, like it's so good.
This reminds me of a movie that came out last year called... It's called Sing Sing.
Oh.
And I watched it earlier this year. Cause my theater does these like mystery movie Mondays, and you just like pay $5 and you just go see a random movie. You don't know what you're seeing until you go into the theater. And they played this movie, and I think it's an A24 film. But it's about...
I love A24 films, man. They keep
They're
releasing
so
banger after
good.
banger.
They're so good. But it's about this like theater program in a prison, and it's just these like prisoners that put on like professional plays for people. And sometimes they write the plays. Like there's the main character is like a playwright.
Okay.
And he like writes the plays sometimes, or they like do other plays. And it's just these like some of the actors in the movies are the real prisoners, like in the prison. like doing these plays. So it's
That's
really
so
cool
cool.
that they took the prisoners actually in this program and put them in the movie, which is so fucking
Wait,
cool.
wait, that's really awesome.
Yeah, and it I think it took place in New York. I forget which prison. Probably just the big prison there. And that kind of reminds me of your book.
Yeah, no, I want to inject this book into my bloodstream. Like, I want to absorb it and internalize, like, every single part of it.
Yeah, it sounds like a great book.
I should read that movie. I should read that movie.
You should read the
Write that down.
movie. Read the movie, write the transcript
Um,
and watch the script.
Before Heartstopper Season 3 came out, I read Heartstopper Book 5 because that Book 5 is, like, the first half of, or, like, the second half of Season 3. Book 4 is, like, the first half of Season 3, and Book 5 is, like, the second half of Season 3. So and that's a graphic novel, right? So that was, like, really
Yeah.
easy to skim through. It just took, like, 2 hours, whatever. It was fun. Um, it's, like, the first book, because it's like mostly supposed to be, like, this, like, happy, pure teenage love story. But now they're, like, as time is passing, they're getting old enough where they're starting to be horny. So Book 5 is the first time they're, like, horny, and it's kind of funny.
Okay.
There's not, like, smut. Like, it's not, like, porn, but it's just, like, they're 16 and they're starting to get horny after
Yeah.
they've been dating for, like, a year. It was fun. And then most recently, I listened to my first ever audiobook this month.
Wow.
This great month of October, because it was like 2 reasons, right? I have a class twice a week where I have to drive like 20 minutes downtown, and the class takes place in a public school, and we have like a room in the public school that's our classroom. And then for like half the class we work with the students, and for half the class we just like have class and talk about stuff that we're doing with the students, or like
Yeah.
are gonna be doing with the students. It's cool. We're doing math with these 5th graders. It's really great. And so I have a commute that I make like an hour and a half a week in total. And then I work at a haunted house in October, and sometimes I'm in a position where I'm like doing less intense stuff, and it's really long nights and it's tiring. And so if I'm in a costume where I can have earbuds in, I have nothing to do, and it's like there's just really loud sounds going on around, so I have nothing to do for 7 hours. So I had audiobook. So you remember Malcolm Gladwell?
Yes. Yes.
We were so obsessed with his what book was it? Tipping Point?
Outliers?
Outliers. We read Outliers when we were sophomores in high school,
Yeah.
and we thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. I just want to say Malcolm Gladwell has a certain writing style. Basically, how he writes all of his books. He's like, I wonder what his degree is in. He's kind of like a pop psychologist. And how he writes all of his books is he presents to you case studies, and then he extracts lessons that we can learn from the case studies that apply to like people at large, and then he takes that and strings all of his case studies and lessons together over the course of his book to prove his overall point. And I do believe that he cherry picks case studies that prove his point, and that it doesn't necessarily mean that it like the point he's like the lessons he's extracting are entirely true. Like, I think sometimes he's only telling you things that prove his point and is like reaching, but nonetheless it is interesting. Like, it's so interesting, the things he talks about, and it's like you can still learn from it, even though it's like I do think he cherry picks. You feel me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So on Spotify, his books are on Spotify as audiobooks, and he narrates them. Like, he is the talker, and he has like a really calm voice. Like, I genuinely enjoy listening to him talk, and it was fun. It was listening to the audiobook. I didn't tell you what book it was yet. It was called Talking to Strangers, and it's one of his newer books. Like, it just came out, like, let me look up when it came out. I want to say 2022. Okay, the book came out in 2019, but he referenced things in the podcast that happened since 2020. Um, podcast, audiobook. It felt like a podcast. So he recorded the audiobook much more recently, and the way he did the audiobook was like sometimes he would like go off script from the book a little bit, or like you know how in his books he like does like transcripts. He would play the actual audio of the transcripts or have actors reenact them. So it was like you're actually hearing other people talk, and like it was so much cooler than just reading the book. So the book was Talking to Strangers, and it was about, the subtitle is What We Should Know About the People We Don't Know. And it would just here, the audiobook, this is from Wikipedia. The audiobook version of the book follows Gladwell's revisionist history podcast style structure, using Gladwell's narration in addition to interview sound bites and then a theme song. And over the course of the book, he teaches us like mistakes people make with when they talk to people they don't know. And he uses so many different like case studies throughout history, and like it's really cool. The main takeaways were when we talk to people, we do this thing called default to truth, where people are assume that the people they're talking to are telling the truth. And like it's only until you get like a enough doubt that you start to think that the person you're talking to is lying. People also assume that people's like mannerisms and like facial expressions match what they are like what's true, but sometimes they don't match. Like sometimes people look like they're lying when they're not lying. Like it's just they're just nervous. And that causes problems in communication. And then he looked into like how police officers specifically, like he looked into just like the science of policing kind of, in order to critique the way that police officers interact with specifically African American peoples. Like he it was a very much audiobook like inspired by 2020 Black Lives Matter stuff. And the theme song for the audiobook was like a Black Lives Matter song. So it was really cool, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Nice.
I think you would like it if you like ever wanted to throw it on Spotify in the background. I think you would enjoy it.
Maybe. Where do you listen to your audiobooks?
What?
Where do you listen to your audiobooks?
Well, this was on Spotify. Like this was just free on Spotify. It was great.
Oh.
This is the only time I've ever listened to an audiobook. But like he this one and I think like 2 other audiobooks by Malcolm Gladwell are on Spotify for free.
Oh, I listened to the Jeanette McCurdy, her book.
Oh, I'm really interested in that.
On Spotify, I bought it, and listening to her read it instead of like reading it myself, it just hits so much harder to like hear it from her voice.
I'm gonna write that down. That's a good suggestion.
It's like it's a hard book. It's rough, and I feel so bad for what she went through.
I'm definitely interested in that. Thank you. From my Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire book, when he does Shakespeare with his students, he talked about how Shakespeare is supposed to be listened to, not read, and that's a mistake that a lot of teachers do, is they make their students read Shakespeare. Shakespeare plays are plays. They're not books. So like he never has his 5th graders like read them. He has his 5th graders listen to them, and they watch different adaptations, different actors in like styles and portrayals put on these plays, and over the course of listening to it, that's how they learn their lines. And like they talk about it and they understand what the words are and like what's happening. But like that was really eye-opening to me, because I've been intending to read Hamlet, because I never read Hamlet because I wasn't a senior in high school like you guys were. And my friends really all. Yeah, that's fair. I have some friends who really, really like Hamlet. So I bought Hamlet this year, and I intend to read it. And that book gave me the idea that I should listen to it as I read it. So from my school's library, I rented records of like a professional Shakespeare company, like performing Hamlet. And I'm gonna like throw them on a record player as I read. And that's like my plan for some time before the end of the year.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So that's my year. Also, for Christmas and my birthday, like in the last year, I've collected a lot of new books that I'm gonna read next year. I wanted to read them this year, but I just didn't have time. But they're like really gay books. So
Gay
I've
books.
collected. Do you remember when we went to the library when we were like 14 and I got a book I was really excited about, and then my
Oh
mom
yeah,
found it
yeah,
because of my brother?
yeah.
And basically, dear listeners, when we were 14 years old, we went to the library together. This was like one of our first times like hanging out outside of school, I feel like. It was like December of our freshman year of high school, and we were at the library just hanging out for like hours, and I found this book. It's like a college gay rom-com. It's like it wasn't sexual. It was just like a cute little, like a meet cute,
Yeah.
like contemporary fiction book with two boys. That's all it was. And I read the first two chapters and I loved it. I like genuinely really enjoyed it. I read them at the library with you. And then I went home and I knew my homophobic mother would not like me reading this, so I hid it under my jacket. But my brother, my older brother, who is 20 years older than me, was staying at the house at the time. And he does not interact with me in a way that I appreciate often. And he sees me going upstairs, hiding a book under my coat. My dad didn't notice, my mom didn't notice. He loudly goes, "What are you hiding under your jacket?" In which case my mother comes over and makes me give her the book. She looks at it, she comes into my room and asks me if I'm gay, tells me that this is inappropriate for me to be reading, and then makes me return it to the library, like, the next day.
I remember you texting me about that.
It was mortifying. Like, that was such a horrible experience.
Yeah.
That sucked. Anyway, I very recently have been gifted, like last year for Christmas, two different people got me. I got the first book, What If It's Us, and then it has a sequel called Here's to Us. And I got both of them for Christmas last year, and they're on my bookshelf, and I'm gonna read them next year, and I'm very excited about it. I also have Cemetery Boys, which is a fictional book. Let me look up what it's about to tell you. Cemetery Boys. Basically, the main characters are trans men, and that's really cool. Here's a summary. Yadriel has summoned a ghost, and now he can't get rid of him. When his traditional Latino family... No, go back. No, I don't want to sign up. When his traditional Latino family... I think Yadriel, that's what it looks like.
What kind of name is that?
And the author is also like a trans guy. I don't know. Yeah, the author is trans and Latino, and then the character is trans and Latino. So when his family has problems accepting his gender, he becomes determined to prove himself a real brujo. With the help of his cousin and best friend, he performs the ritual himself and sets out to find the ghosts of his murdered cousin and set it free. But the ghost he summons is actually Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy, and Julian is not about to go quietly.
What? Wait, he summons a ghost of the school's bully?
Yeah.
But the bully has to be alive.
Sure, I'm just assuming he recently died, like some Dear Evan Hansen shit. Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He's determined to find out what happened, to tie up some loose ends before he leaves, left with no choice. Yadriel agrees to help Julian so they can both have what they want, but the longer Yadriel spends with Julian, the less he wants to let him leave. So it's gay, and it's transgender, and it's Latino, and it's like... It's written by a trans guy. I have it on my bookshelf. I'm so excited about it. I just have, like, this gay section of my bookshelf.
You like them gay boys.
Yeah, and then, finally, you remember that really cool book you found for me at Barnes & Noble, and you were like, you would like this. Hell Followed With Us? I have it now. I got it for Christmas last year from someone.
What did I do?
Look it up. I think you'll recognize it.
What is it called?
Hell Follows With Us. It's a 2022 dystopian fantasy horror young adult novel by another transgender author, Andrew Joseph White. It was published to commercial and critical success. An animated film based on the book is currently in production, led by Lily Wachowski. Oh, that's so cool! That's the trans woman who made The Matrix, right? Lily Wachowski?
Oh, is that one of the sisters?
Yeah, I'm like 90% sure. That's so cool. So they're making dude, write this down. They're making an animated film directed by, this is going to be a Pride movie,
Pride movie.
It's written by a trans person, produced by a trans woman. It's about
Oh,
trans
they're
people.
from Chicago. The Wachowski sisters.
Okay, that's written
Wait,
down.
they did V for Vendetta? They did Speed Racer? Oh my god. No
Okay, here's
way
the book. Here's the book.
Racer.
Hell
That's
followed with us.
insane.
16-year-old trans boy Benji is on the run from the cult that raised him, the fundamentalist sect that unleashed Armageddon and decimated the world's population. Desperately, he searches for a place where the cult can't get their hands on him, or more importantly, on the bioweapon they infected him with. But when cornered by monsters born from the destruction, Benji is rescued by a group of teens from the local Asian LGBTQ Center, affectionately known as the ALC. The ALC's leader, Nick, is gorgeous, autistic, and a deadly shot. And he knows Benji's darkest secret. The cult's bioweapon is mutating him into a monster deadly enough to wipe humanity from the earth once and for all. Still, Nick offers Benji shelter among his ragtag group of queer teens, as long as Benji can control the monster and use its power to defend the ALC. Eager to belong, Benji accepts Nick's terms until he discovers the ALC's mysterious leader has a hidden agenda and more than a few secrets of his own. A furious queer debut novel about embracing the monster within and unleashing its power against your oppressors. Doesn't that sound so fucking cool?
Damn.
You found this book for me in a Barnes & Noble, and you just kind of handed it to me, and you were like, I think you'd like this. And I looked at it, and I was like, yes, I fucking would. And then now it's on my bookshelf.
I don't remember that. But
This was like during our road trip.
go off, I guess.
Thank you. 3 years ago, Soul. So that's the little gay section of my bookshelf that I got for Christmas last year that I intend to read next year, and I'm excited about the trans fiction.
How do you organize your bookshelf?
Oh, let me tell you, we should talk about this. That's so exciting. Okay, so my bookshelf has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shelves and then a top. Do you want me to start from the top or the bottom?
The bottom.
Okay, on the bottom we have my school textbooks. Like every textbook that I've had for a class, because as a teacher I keep all my textbooks because they all have like lesson plan ideas and stuff in them that'll be useful in the future. So that's what's on the bottom. Then the next shelf is all of my notebooks, all of my Christian books, and all of my teacher books that I read for my personal enjoyment, not a textbook.
Nice.
On the next shelf is poetry / mythology and fiction or nonfiction books that I don't care about as much.
Okay.
Like, I cared about them enough to bring them to college, but they're not as important as the next shelf. The next shelf is fictional books and, like, one nonfiction book that is dearly important to me. It includes the gay books that I just talked about.
Your gay shelf.
It's like every book that is one of my favorites or that I intend to read soon. Basically, like the first Michael Bay book is on there. It's like, yeah, you get the vibes.
Yeah.
So we have textbooks, notebooks / teacher books, other books that I own, then like my favorite shelf. That's my favorite shelf. And then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th shelf is my CDs, and I have CD holders now, so they're not just like lined up. And then the 6th shelf is my comics and like big chunky books, like our high school yearbook or like guitar sheet music books, or the Dangerous Book for Boys 1 and 2. And then on top of the bookshelf are my MIDI keyboard, my projector, my microphone, one of my cameras, and my binders full of different things, like my D&D binder or my guitar music binder. And then all throughout my bookshelf, I have like so many. I'm just gonna send you a picture like for you to see. I have so many little like trinkets.
Trinkets.
You're gonna love this. It's like things. It's like things from our adventures, and also like little guys.
Little guys. I have a lot of little guys.
You're gonna love. You'll recognize some of the stuff from like our trips, and then also it's just little guys.
I have 2 Lego figures that sit under my computer monitor, and one of them is me, and one of them is Lego Batman.
What about me?
I don't have one of you. You have your
You
own.
should. You should get a
Do
Lego
you have
me.
one of me?
No.
Exactly.
So like I have my ceramic dragon from
Oh
when we did
damn.
pottery.
Your
I
shelves
have that
are
little truck, the
stuffed.
Tyler truck from Bass Pro Shop. I have those little like drunk goggles. I have some like fun little rubber ducks. I have little Funko Pops and like little plushy guys. That's my bookshelf for you
Man,
to see.
that's crazy.
Do you like it?
It's
There's that Hamlet record case. What?
stuffed.
Yeah. All the books that are laying flat on like one of the top shelves are because they won't fit standing up. It's cute. It's like it's eclectic. What's your bookshelf like?
So I have two shelves. I have one that sits behind me in my videos that you guys might have seen. And that's mostly just filled with garbage and trinkets. And then I have the one shelf that has all the books that I wanted to read this year. I've read some of them. Have not read most of them, but I'm getting to it. And then I have my bookshelf. I have my shelves in my living room, and those are more stylized for looking. And they have a lot of trinkets and a lot of Legos on it. I love doing Legos, and I have a bunch of bird Legos, and I have the bug collection. Oh, I was waiting for the bug collection for years, and then I saw it at Target, and I bought it immediately. I didn't even think about it. And I built all three of them, and they sit on my shelves, and I love them so much. And I have maybe like 6 sections on my shelf. The first one is like miscellaneous, kind of. It's just books that wouldn't fit in a section. And it's kind of mostly just classics and random books I didn't know where to put. Below that, I have my mythology shelf. It has mythology. It has a mythology textbook. And it has mythology from like Norse mythology. We have Arthurian mythology. We have Greek mythology, Asian mythology. What was that one book you gave me? It was like a Hindu mythology or like Persian mythology. I haven't read that yet, but it's on my shelf.
Yeah, it was like translated like from Hindu to English, and it was
about like an owl.
It was really cool. Yeah.
I have that. I also put there medieval.
You're gonna have another book to put there soon, don't you worry.
Ooh. I also had just like medieval stories that I put there. I have like The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings books, but those sit under my TV. And I have them all in a specific style. Like they have these beautiful paintings on them, but I'm missing the second Lord of the Rings book because I would find them individually in that specific style, but I cannot find the second book. And I'm looking for it everywhere, and I'm so sad about it. But maybe I'll finish my collection in the future. And then another section I have is like textbooks, but like film school textbooks. And most of the books that are in that section I bought before I went to college because I wanted to study. Like the main reason why I went to film school is because I found this book called I forget what it's called. It's called like Everything You Need to Know About Making Movies Without Going to Film School. It's called something like that. And I found that in like 6th grade at the local library. And I would check it out all the time. And I would reread it all the time. And I read it over and over and over and over and over again. And it's mostly about writing, like screenwriting, which I'm not interested in. But my mom eventually bought me the book. And I now just have it. And then I also have photography textbooks. And then like now I had to buy books for like editing and other things. I don't know. And then I have nonfiction boring books like Outliers, like I have those books. And those are at like the bottom. And then I have a new section that I added I think last semester, earlier this year. I added like a American Western section where it's just a bunch of books I had to buy for my American Western class and I was unable to sell. So now I just have a section of American Western books. And I personally do not like the American West after taking a class about it for a semester. Don't like it. Never liked it, still won't like it. Now I have a bunch of books about it. And when my grandfather died last year, my mom put like a box of books in front of me and she's like, you can take any of these. And in it was mostly westerns, but I found these like two western books that are they're definitely a little smutty in some ways, and I was like, I want these too. And I now just have those on my shelf. Let's see, what are the other sections? I don't know how I could have possibly forgotten this section, but I forgot my Neo Gaming section.
Yeah, I don't know how you forgot that. That's like a prime section.
I have my favorite.
Do you have a picture? I want to see a picture of your bookshelf.
Yeah, I'll take a picture. My favorite author is Neil Gaiman. He's the guy who wrote Coraline and some other books. And what's that one series called? That one TV show?
Good Omens.
Good Omens. Yeah, he wrote Good Omens. I haven't read the book.
He wrote the first book you ever read by him, The Boys. The
Anansi Boys?
Yeah, the Anansi Boys.
That one's one of my favorite books by him because it was one of my first books that I read by him. I read Coraline, but
you were so excited when you read that in high school.
It was such a fucking good book. I love it so much, and I love him. I love his style of writing. It's just like playful and like for kids, but it's also like so enjoyable to read as like me. And it's just like all of his books are so good, and it's my goal to read all of his books. I
want to read Coraline at some point.
It's really good. It's different from the movie, but it's still really good. I think I have about like 5 of his books. I have a lot of his short story books. You gave me that huge fat book.
Yeah, I gave you this like giant book of a bunch of his short stories.
Yeah, and most of them that I started reading it, and most of them were in the other short story book that I have.
Rip.
So, and I like read that one already, and I was like reading the big book, and I was like, wait a minute, I swear I heard this one
I know
before.
this one.
But he literally, if you don't want to read any of his books, just read his short stories. They're so good, and it made me fall in love with him even more.
What's your favorite short story? Mine's got to be The Lottery. Just like ever.
I don't know. I really don't.
Do you remember The Lottery? We've read it.
I feel like it.
In like 8th grade. It's like this. The whole time you don't know something is wrong, but like there's hints that something's wrong. This town has a lottery every year, and everyone in the town has to enter it. And there's just like hints that you don't want to be the one to win the lottery. Like everyone's like scared of winning it. And then at the end, you find out whoever wins the lottery gets, like, stoned to death by the entire rest of the town, including their, like, own family and friends.
Yeah.
And it's, like, to appease the farming gods.
Yeah. That was a good one.
I like that one where the princess has to choose between, like, marrying another man or letting her, like, boyfriend be eaten by a tiger or something like that.
Oh, that one! I think,
and, like,
didn't we reread that one recently?
Like,
together?
And the story, like, ends. We did, and you don't know which one she ends up picking.
Yeah. That one's a good one, too. I remember being told about the short story of, this, like, traveler goes to this town, and, there's, like, everyone's, like, super happy, and they have everything they need, but then they show the traveler this, like, boy who's like in a basement, and they torture him every day to keep the happiness of the rest of the people. And it's like a philosophical story of like, is it worth one person suffering every single second of their life just to make like hundreds of other people happy? And I think I read this in like my philosophy class. And it was just like a really interesting discussion about whether it's worth it or not. And it's a really good story. I think I printed it out. It's like 2 pages long.
Wait, that's so cool.
Oh, I also have in my like film shelf with all my film books, I have some like memoirs by people, by actors, and I have like interview books.
Ooh.
They're essentially like these people interviewed. Like I have a book called Scorsese, and it's just like these two guys who interviewed Martin Scorsese and then just put the interview in like book form. And it's like a really long book.
Oh, that's gotta be cool.
But I also have Elliot Page's memoir. It's a memoir, right?
Oh, yeah.
Page Boy?
I would read that.
I haven't read it yet, but I heard he trashes on some celebrities.
Oh, fun. I would support him in anything.
I think one of them is Chris Pratt, so
Valid, actually.
Yeah.
I also like Edgar Allan Poe. My favorite Edgar Allan Poe story is it's either The Fall of the House of Usher or The Cask of Amontillado.
Ooh, I don't know what any of those are. I like The Monkey's Paw.
That's a classic. The Fall of the
Yeah.
House of Usher is really, really good because the title has like 3 meanings. Have I told you this before?
No, I don't know what any of those are.
Cool. Okay, so The Fall of the House of Usher is about this guy. It's probably take you like 20 minutes to read. It's like a guy who goes to visit a friend who's like sick, and like he goes to his house, and the guy's like sister is like really sick, and like his parents are dead, and he's like the last in the family line, and he's like his last name is Usher. So the title is, at the end of the book, the house falls down, and like the narrator leaves alive, but like the brother and sister both die. And it's cool because it takes place in the fall. So it's fall, and you're at the House of Usher. The fall of the House of Usher, right? Then, the house falls down. The fall of the House of Usher, right? Then, the last 2 living Usher people in the Usher line die. So it's the fall of the House of Usher. Isn't that fun?
That's cool. I like
You would like it. You would really like the fall of the House of Usher. They made like a Netflix show based off of it. I haven't watched it. I think it would piss me off because I feel like it wouldn't be good. And then The Cask of Amontillado is an Edgar Allan Poe story where like the narrator is insane and he's an unreliable narrator. I love when Edgar Allan Poe writes stories with unreliable narrators. The Telltale Heart is a classic one.
Oh yeah.
Like the narrator's fucking crazy and like murdered a guy, right? But the Telltale Heart is like really obvious. The narrator's like, I'm not crazy. He'll think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. And it's like, you know what's happening, like a 6th grade. That's for like a 6th grader to read.
Yeah.
The Cask of Amontillado is more of like a high school reading level with an unreliable narrator. It's like this guy is going to like a masquerade party in like the 1800s, and he like gets this guy drunk and leads him into like the wine cellar and buries him alive.
I thought you said marries him.
No, he's gay. No, he buries him alive, like, into the wine cellar. It's so interesting.
Weird.
That's all I have. What was your favorite book this year?
Oh! I don't know. Let me look. Oh my god. I listened to the Twilight audiobook. There's this guy on YouTube who just reads, like, young adult fiction, and he puts like rain sounds in the background, and it's really nice.
So fun.
And
I love that.
I listened to the Twilight audiobook, and that was really nice. And I think that was my favorite, just the way he read it. He was perfect for it. I also like the 1980. Unfortunately, I am one of those people whose favorite book in high school was 1984. I don't know what that says about me, but I really, really enjoy 1984.
What do you like about 1984?
I don't know. I just like that it's like dystopian. I love different dystopian worlds and learning about them.
1984 is pretty good. I
And,
just think it's so funny that like you're like, yeah, I like 1984.
Yeah, I just like I just like seeing different dystopian worlds and seeing how they end up that way. And I just like learning about the world outside of that little community, kind of like the Hunger Games. But like I like the Hunger Games, but I want to know what's happening like outside of the country. Like what's happening in the rest of the world? Like I want to know, is the whole world like this, or is it like just them? Like is the rest of the world like normal like us, or is it like what they're living
Dude, the
through?
Hunger Games is so good. We should do a Hunger Games series sometime.
They're releasing the next movie next year.
Dude, I'm so excited.
This makes me want to read. After like talking about books, now I just want to go read a book.
Thank you guys for listening. We like books. We usually talk about movies though, so you should subscribe to hear us talk about movies. Bye.
Bye. That's such a fast outro.